spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with Racing Girls Rock Podcast. And it's my honor today to have a very special guest. Her name is Christi Schimpke, and the name of her company is Crash Jewelry. And if you wonder what Crash Jewelry is, I can't wait for her to tell you and for her to show you some examples. And I will also post some pictures along with the podcast when it gets posted, because I can't even explain how beautiful this jewelry is. I was able to see it in person when I went to Nashville to the Women with Drive event that was held the weekend of the Indy race. And she had a display of jewelry there, and the women were three deep trying to get to the table to look at the jewelry. And most of them were so unique that if you saw one you liked, you better grab it, because it was the only one like it. And so I wanted to have Christi on and talk to her about where she came up with this wonderful idea, this beautiful jewelry. And so we connected today. And Christi, welcome to the show. And would you start by telling us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, thank you, Melinda. I'm really, really happy to be here. And thank you so much for the invitation. I love what you do. I live in Southern California, outside of LA on the west side at Culver City. And I'm married, no children. So my husband has a body shop in West LA, and it's been there since 1979. He has a partner who's been there longer, and the shop specializes in mostly Mercedes-Benz. They're a tier 2 certified aluminum welding shop. So they work on new cars, late model cars, but they also work on a lot of European cars and some American cars. So when I met Dan, I was working at UCLA. My background is in art history, actually. And I worked for a number of years at the Getty Museum and then at UCLA. So I had a totally different career prior to this. I've always loved art. I've always been a frustrated artist. I found that doing research and all that reading about artists was very fulfilling, but not working in a bureaucracy like the Getty or UCLA. It's almost impossible to get anything done. It seems like, right. If you're sort of a go-getter or whatever, or you're proactive, it's hard, Yeah. So Dan and we got married. It was a second marriage, so we were, older. And when I met him, I was very unhappy with my job at the time. And so he said, well, why don't you take some time and figure out what you want to do? Because I was always in awe of him, because no matter what he'd done the night before, he'd get up at 5 a.m. excited to go to work, and he'd work long days, and he still does, but he loves what he does. And I never felt that way my whole life, my whole professional career. I never felt like that. And so I did a variety of things, started taking metalsmith classes, which I immediately just felt a strong connection with. And after several years, I became pretty good at it, and then started making more traditional jewelry like you'd see on Etsy or whatever, silver, that kind of thing. And at that point, I had a different company, and it was called Minabee, named after my grandmother. And Dan let me move my studio into a garage adjacent to the property, the body shop. And so this was a few years back, and I would be working, and I'd go out and look at the cars, just take a break, and I'd see these, gorgeous Bentleys come in, and these Mercedes and Lamborghinis and whatnot, and the colors what captured, well, the designs, but also the colors, or what
Right.
sort of captured my imagination. The paint on these cars. Some of them, like the Bentley and the Windsor blue, or the Damson metallic purple, and it was all factory finish, or the matte finishes, whatever. And I started wondering, what happens when that fender or door, whatever, is removed, and then a part is replaced. What happens? So I asked Dan. He said, well, we own that piece now, and then we recycle it, or somebody takes it and recycles it. But you never really know what happens to it.
Right.
So I started thinking about, I wonder if I could do something with this car metal, because at that point in time, metal prices, precious metal, were just skyrocketing, and I just couldn't afford it. And so it just started as an idea, like making jewelry from the car metal, because from a marketing perspective, it made sense. But I didn't know how to do it. So it took, I'm in my 8th year. It probably took 5, 6 years, even 8 really at this point, for what we're doing now, to get to that point where I feel like it's complete. I mean, there's always room for growth, for sure,
Right.
and more creativity. But I feel like I've got it, because I had to come up with my own sort of production techniques, which are not, I mean, they're very hands-on. I don't want to, very, very crude, I guess you'd say, because the whole goal of making crash jewelry is to retain the original factory paint. And that's been the hardest, the biggest challenge. I mean, there's been a lot of challenges, but imagine when you've cut out a piece, you've cut out a piece for a bracelet like you have, and I've sanded it, I've polished it, I've riveted, etc. And then I go to bend it, and then the paint would crack or fracture, or just fly off, and because it's not meant to be bent that way. And so now I'm at the point where I understand the different types of paints on different cars. There's all these variables, what part of the the car that your bracelet comes from may determine the thickness of the paint on your bracelet. So I have to consider all these things when deciding what to make from that piece of car metal, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's so interesting, because there was all that metal right in front of you, really. And then just one day the idea came, hey, I wonder what I could do with this. And we're seeing the end production of all your studying and practicing and trial and error. And the bracelets, I mean, I think there was some necklace and earrings there too, but the bracelets are just amazing. And I wouldn't think about the paint popping off when you fix it.
Yeah, and the other thing is, like on your bracelet, for example, that the bottom piece is actually a Ferrari 599 GTO, and it's a pearl white. And then the piece on top of it is from a 360 Challenger Stradale and Rosso Corsa. So in order to attach that red piece to the pearl white, I have to use rivets, because I can't use an open flame or it will destroy the paint.
Okay.
But the kicker is that I have to do everything on a curved surface. Like, for example, it has to be like this before I can even apply another piece of metal on top of that. Because in the beginning, I had everything flat, and then I would rivet it on top, and then I'd bend it, but it doesn't work that way. So
they don't bend together.
No, they do not. And usually, things shorten, things lengthen. And so all these little things I've had to learn. And it also makes it really hard when something is curved, not only drilling holes, for the rivets, but also riveting, doing anything on a curved basis has been, a real challenge as well. So there's I must say every day I learn something about this car metal.
So you take the flat piece of metal, let's say that bracelet right there, and then how do you make it curve? And how do you know what size to make it?
Well, that's a good question. And that's also taken a long time to figure out. And now we've got it on our website. We really break it down, so it shouldn't be a problem at all. But what I recommend is that, everybody, you measure your wrist right above the bone, about right there, and with a soft tape measure. And my wrist measures 6 inches. And then I subtract a half an inch for the opening.
Okay.
So then I would be a 5.5.
Okay.
So whoever's ordering it can order it right off the website, specifically, down to, their 3/4, like 5.75 if you want. So everything is custom, so it fits you well. And so that's and then as for bending it, I slowly heat up the metal. I mean, not using an open flame, but I do heat it up, but it takes it only for a matter of seconds. And then also I'll put it in again and again, because the paint will burn. And when paint is like when we cure the paint, or when the paint is drying in our booths, I think it's about, we bake it at about, I want to say 275, not too hot. And so I have to figure out like what's going to work for that particular paint on that particular car. And it is trial and error. And then once I get it out, depending on if it's aluminum or steel, if it's steel, I can bend it. It's much easier to bend. I can bend it on a mandrel, a steel mandrel, and then use a soft mallet and shape it. If it's aluminum, I have to use an arbor press with an attachment that I found. Somebody that she created this apparatus that has been a game changer for me, I must say, because aluminum is one of the strongest metals I've worked with. It is tough. Yeah.
But it's also beautiful.
Yeah, it is. And the thing that I like about aluminum too is it's very lightweight. So and it doesn't corrode. So it stays, nice and shiny. So if you want to wear a pair of earrings, they're very lightweight. You don't even know you have them on.
Right.
And so I like that aspect of it a lot. And most of our cars now are aluminum. So,
So another thing that was really cool about each of the bracelets is that there's a little card that comes with it.
Yeah.
And so tell the listeners about the little cards and what the purpose of those are.
Okay, so what we do is we supply a DMV registration card, like you get if you registered your car from the DMV, and it's got a seal on it, like for the state of California, but it's the state of Crash Jewelry. And what's really cute in the middle is a picture of a woman with a helmet, a racing helmet, and a car in the distance. So that's the seal. You have to look at it. It's tiny.
Yeah.
And what we do is we include a crash VIN number, which helps us also determine if you want to reorder. We'll know what size you are.
Okay.
It also includes the the make and the model of the car, and the color if we know it. We also include any other details that might be of interest to the customer. For example, if it's laser engraved or I added gemstones, I'll list that, like this is a ruby, or this is, whatever. So it's a small card, but as much information as we can get on there.
Yeah.
Because we also find that if you give it as a gift, people want to know, they want to know all about it.
Absolutely.
So,
so I thought the little cards were interesting because as the women were looking at mostly the bracelets, as the women were looking at them, one of the ladies said, "Oh, I want a Ferrari bracelet, or I want a whatever kind of bracelet," because that's maybe the kind of car she had or the kind of car she loved. And she wasn't even caring so much about the design or the color as what kind of car it was made from, which I thought was really interesting, because for me, I was looking at the design and the color and what am I going to wear it with, and what else. And so the one I bought was the silver with the red, and I should have put it on. And like I said, it's packed up because we're going to be leaving. But the jewelry is just, every piece is unique, isn't it? There's no two pieces exactly alike.
No, and I want to address that, but go back to what you were saying about how people look at it when they're shopping, because I'm like you, I look for design because I'm a visual person. But what I have learned is that a lot of people, they are such car enthusiasts that that's the first thing they want to know is like, what do you have in a Miata? What do you have in this? What do you have in this color? What do you have in this make? What do you have in this model? It's amazing, and I love it too. And some people even send me their own car metal. They may have a piece in the garage. They may have had a fender replaced. And I always recommend, see if you can keep that fender, see if you can ask the shop to cut a swath out for you, if you want me to make you something. But going back to everything is handmade. Yes, everything is made by hand and everything is one of a kind. However, this past couple of years, we've perfected a new technique where we employ a laser engraver. And what we'll do is that enables us to replicate certain intricate designs like this one with the, I don't know if you can, so it allows me to do to scale up a bit, but even though the designs are the same, say for example, I still have to cut them, sand them, polish them, rivet it. So everything is a little bit different.
Right.
But the laser engraving has been a game changer for us.
So I was going to ask you, if somebody had a piece from their race car or their personal car, they can actually send that to you and you can work with them and make something very custom.
Absolutely. And if it's all we need is it needs to be steel or aluminum. And for example, this a woman in Ohio sent me part of her race car. It's a Ferrari. It was painted sort of lime green and white. It had all these decals all over it, of course. And people loved it. They love getting a piece of that car with you can see a piece of the decal, or maybe it's got some roughed up edges, or she was actually pushed into the wall. She was fine, but the car wasn't.
Right.
And and also, oh my gosh, this is another great story. This guy in Australia, Ron Goodman, he races Porsche 356s, I guess, the little speedsters. And he's got a shop in Sydney where he works on anything Porsche. He's amazing, this guy. And so he contacted me and he said, a few years back, I went up to Laguna Seca and I was part of the vintage, the Rolex vintage race event that they have during Car Week. And I mean, and it was a big deal. He even made a movie about it. So, he brought his car over from Sydney and then he drove it up from LA up to, Monterey. And he, was in this race for several days. Well, at the very end, he did crash. I know he's obviously he's okay, but he saved part of his car. And he said, can you make something for this, especially for this charity that I'm interested in? Australia was devastated by those wildfires.
Right.
I think it was for that charity. So he sent me all the way from Australia this box of just rusted pieces of metal, and it was. But we made. I made some beautiful stuff. I
bet
it was great. It was great. Yeah. So he loved it, and I enjoyed also like helping him out, with this charity as well.
Yeah. So how big of a piece I'm thinking of my granddaughters, they both race. And so how big of a piece do you need to make a bracelet?
For a bracelet, it doesn't need to be that big. It could be, this something like this, it doesn't need to be that big. But it's better to get a bigger piece if I can. It could be, the size of an envelope, like a padded mailing envelope or something like that. Just to see, because sometimes, you make mistakes. You want to obviously, the first piece may be a prototype, the next one. So the more metal to work with. But what we usually ask is, if you have some metal, just cut it up into those size pieces. Yeah.
Okay.
If you can. One guy sent me a hood from Texas, and we cut it up at the shop. So it's up to, the person. I like to have a discussion, see pictures.
Okay.
Then we can determine. A lot of people don't have access to, the cutting tools or whatever to cut up a fender. So, but we can do that for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so just roughly, I know the bracelets varied in price, but can you just give them a random, idea of what a bracelet costs, either from the website or whatever?
They start at, I think, $65 and go up to about $400 to $500, depending on what's involved. What's on it.
Yeah, and how intricate it is, because there was a wide variety of what I thought was excellent prices for what you were getting, because it's so unique and so different. And so I wore mine then all weekend, and I had a couple of people say, "Oh, I love your bracelet," and I said, "Oh, there's a gal that makes these. Go to Christ Jewelry." And whether they did, I don't know, but they're so different looking that they draw attention, and not in a gaudy or look at me kind of way, but just because they're so unique that people say like, "Oh, I really love your bracelet."
Yeah. And what's really cool about that is when somebody says that to you, and then you say, "Oh, it's a it's a Lamborghini," they look at you like you're crazy.
Right.
And then you explain, and then it never fails to amaze me, that people laugh out loud, or they smile, or, and it always makes me happy, because, I mean, that's the thing. You don't know that you're wearing a piece of a car, so that's kind of the hidden surprise as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And just, when I first saw them, like I said, I was just, I'm a creative person, so I scrapbooked. That was my big thing. I love all that kind of crafts things, and I'm an visual person as well. So you can show, I had a ceramic shop for years. So, people look at the greenware, which is just, one color of clay. They can't see the finished product, and I could see it in 10 different ways. And so, just being able to see that, and then just to see what you were doing and all the different cars. And I was just thinking, how did she come up with this idea? And I just love that it was, there it is, your husband's business, and it's right there. And you came up with a way to not only repurpose some beautiful metal, because otherwise, who knows where it went to the recycle,
landfill.
And you were able to just create such beautiful items from it. And so why don't you share, where can somebody go to find out where, do you have items that they can purchase that you already have done, and how they can order from you? So let us know all the details about that.
Okay, thanks. Absolutely. So you can go, I do have a website. It's a full retail site. And it is crashjewelry.com. And everything is broken into cars. Or you can search by types of jewelry, or you can search, I think, by price as well. I try and keep it as up to date as possible. There is a contact form there. If you had an idea for a custom order, or you have your own metal or whatever, feel free to contact me, because I'm always open to that collaboration. So I mostly sell there. Since we've now opened up a little bit, I'm doing a lot of car shows. So this fall is just October's booked because
Right.
everybody's cramming everything into
Sure.
the fall. So I like to do car shows as well.
Okay.
So a lot of my customers have been with me since the very beginning, which is great. And they keep coming back, or they tell somebody,
Right.
and yeah. And then I also offer occasionally, sales, things around the holidays. So I always try, if you get on the mailing list, I always send out information
Okay.
about that as well.
All right. So go to your website and you can get on the mailing list and you can see what's going on. And is there a list of where you're going to be?
Yes, I need to update that.
Okay.
But also, I must say, on the homepage and also on the press page, there are videos that show how I make the jewelry.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah. So that's always good to see, like so you can just sort of conceptualize like what it is she's doing, because most people, I mean, a lot of times when I've been at shows and I mention that it's made from the car metal or whatever, I've had people think that I've actually bought a car and cut it up. or that I paint it, or that it's raw metal and then I paint it.
Right.
Or, so it's good to see the process, just so you get an idea as to what goes into it, because it is,
yeah. That's cool. But Kalamazoo, and I don't know if they're having it this year or not, I haven't heard, but Kalamazoo always has a huge car show. And I want to say Tin Dusters something, but it's really big deal. And there's a lot of beautiful cars. And I know you're way too far away to come to that show, but those are the kind of shows I think that people really would be interested in what you have. And they do have, booths where people sell things, but I've never seen any jewelry.
What time of the year is that?
September, I believe.
Oh, okay. Because there's also that the Concours d'Elegance, what is it? Of the Americas or something, that's in at the Inn in St. John's in Plymouth.
Okay.
I believe, but that one I think is in July. But yeah,
well, you'll have to check. I'll have to check out the dates for you, because I know you said you have relatives in Michigan, and
yes,
when you were here, it was way too hot. You need to come in September when it's a little cooler and the leaves are just starting to turn a little bit. It's really starting to get pretty here. So I'll get you that information for down the line, because it's a big show. It's a big deal. So I'd love to see you come for that.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah. Well, Christi, is there anything that I've missed that I haven't asked you about that you'd like to share about yourself or what you do?
I don't think so. What I was going to say is, since our shop works mostly on European cars, we do occasionally get some American. I'm always on the market for muscle cars. So if anybody out there, has any connections or, has any scrap metal laying around, let me know, because I get a lot of requests for Camaros and things like that. And I mean, we do have a couple of Mustangs. We do have one Dodge Charger, but that's it. And then the other thing is I get a lot of requests for is Corvettes. And it's really frustrating because I can't work with Corvette metal because it's fiberglass. Unless it's an older Corvette, then if I could get any steel or anything off of that, I'd love that, because people love Corvettes, and the new Corvette is gorgeous, but I just can't work with it.
No. Okay. Well, we'll put that in the show notes too, that what you're looking for, what kind of, it has to be metal or aluminum, steel or aluminum. And you'd love to have some muscle cars and some American cars. Okay.
Some race cars. Yeah.
Race cars. I think I might be able to find you some race cars that, surely there's some race car parts laying around that need to be made into bracelets for sure.
Absolutely. Yes. I love that. Yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Well, Christi, I've just so enjoyed talking with you and learning more about Christ Jewelry and how it came to be and what you're doing. And I encourage all of my listeners to go to your website and check it out. It would make a great gift for someone, a gift for yourself. That's what I did. I bought one for myself. But they're just so unique and so beautiful. And if you love cars or racing or anything like that, it's just the perfect thing to have on your arm when you're out and about. And I absolutely love mine. I've worn it quite often since I bought it. And so hopefully some people come and check out your website and that we can stay connected. Christi, I'd love to be able to stay connected with you and know more, whenever you come up with something new and different, we're going to share it for you. How's that?
Oh, that's great. I really appreciate it. Just want to say one thing. When you get a piece of crash jewelry, make sure you take it off when you go through the airport metal detector.
Okay. I wouldn't have thought of that, but that's probably true. It's going to make you go off, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much, Melinda.
Really Christi, thank you. Thank you for being on the show.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Follow us on Facebook at International Women's Motorsports Association or on Instagram and Twitter at the IWMA Nation. And if you know someone that should be on our show, drop us an email at iwmanation@gmail.com.